All right, let's talk about West Point Gold, WPG on the TSX Venture and WPGCF on the OTCQB in the US. So West Point, I've followed it for about 6 months now, and I've been impressed by the results that you've had from the Tyro vein, the Tyro Main Zone. And that's like your gold chain project in northwestern Arizona, which is also the southern extension of the Walker Lane Trend, which extends all the way to the north into California. You have multiple projects in the Walker Lane, but let's focus on gold chain because that is where you're drilling now. So the results have been good, and you just announced more results for 2 holes last week, 73.15 meters of over a gram. Not too shabby, including 16.7 meters of 2.67 grams. So I know you're still drilling. So let's get an update on this phase of drilling. I'll turn it over to you, Quentin.
We're in the midst or well into a 3,000 meter drill program, which is a resource definition drill program at the Tyro project, which is a Tyro structure that is historically a producer, meaning 1905 to 1920. There's actually historic mining shafts there. We would know or presume in those days it would have been, it's like 200 feet deep. They would have been mining half an ounce. So you're dealing with a very robust area that the 1980s, they put a small heap leach pad together to get a little bit of gold out of that while gold was spiking in the early 80s. So we're in an area which is very robust. It's got all the infrastructure. Those of you that follow know it's just not too far from Lake Mead outside the town of Bullhead City in Arizona, just over the state line from Nevada on the southeastern tip of the Walker Lane district. So we've got all kind of the boxes checked. Whenever you're looking for gold, the best place to look for gold is obviously where gold has been mined historically, and that gives you the smoke. And that's essentially, those of you that know my background was with Corvus Gold, where we were using historic, much more very similar type of setting to the north west of Las Vegas. This is to the equidistant 90 miles to the southeast of Las Vegas, and so we've got this incredible district here with lots of historic mining on it, lots of infrastructure around it, and a town nearby. A highway goes right past it, and on this area, we've got 6 different million-ounce targets on our land package. 3 of those are multi-million ounce targets, and the drill program that's underway at Tyro is what we would call the low-hanging fruit, or the most obvious targets are being drilled. Now, the historic drilling that's been done since 2021 has been incredibly robust, given very economic and robust grade. The flagship hole of that was the one that was drilled in early 2023, which was 86 meters of 6 grams. And in that, they had 9 meters of 51 grams. And that was the hole I looked at a year ago and said, I got to be a part of this company. I want to be involved. And so, yeah, my last year has been very much, let's drill this Tyro structure off and try to figure out if we can get a maiden resource, which the model we're dealing with from the independent modeler was 15 to 31 million tons of 1.5 to 2.5 grams open pit surficial along a structure that's about 1 kilometer long, 30 to 50 meters wide, and presumed to be about 150 to 200 meters deep. So that is the structure. You can think of it as like those of you that are old timers like me, it's like a telephone book or something like that. Before the internet, you'd actually have to flip through. You get this big, thick structure that's hanging down from surface. It had been mined, as I mentioned to you. There's old mining shafts there that we presume were half an ounce, 15 grams. That's all been, of course, mined out in those days. But there's grade for a $3,000 gold market, as we mentioned, at 1.5 to 2.5 grams. So we've been drilling that off, and so the current 3,000 meters is actually a maiden resource targeted program. There's still some debate internally as to whether or not we're going to put out a resource later this year, because we really need to see what's there on this first pass. So we're actually doing spacing of the holes as we work northeast along the structure, 50 meters, 100 meters spacing, which should give us indicated or inferred gold results of a maiden resource for presumably the fall. Now, so the results you're seeing are really a lot of the previous drilling over the last 3 years has been done on the southern end, where that hole 28 was the one that was 86 meters of 6. But we also on the northernmost hole that we drilled in the fall, we got 42 meters of 2.5 grams, and that, there's 700 meters spacing between those of a continuous structure that we're drilling. And again, I'm doing my best to describe it, but I would encourage you to go take a look at the PowerPoint of the deck on the website, because there's actually some pretty good maps on there that'll give you an idea of how the program is really tying it together. There's a long section on the PowerPoint which will show you the spacing and give you a pretty good idea of why we're so confident that model we're chasing of 15 million to 31 million tons at 1.5 grams is something we see as in our purview right now. And that is just the first target of what we see as 6 obvious targets for million ounce plus potential. And that's the program that we're just underway on right now. So to look at, to tie it back to the model I was talking about of a thick foam book, 30 to 50 meters wide, where the drilling has gotten interesting with results over the past 2 months, and I think a lot of you that are on this call probably would have seen the drill results, is that the model of 30 to 50 meters that we've been looking at, there's a hanging wall and then there's a footwall. So the footwall would be presumably the hard stop of where the mineralization ends, and the hanging wall, the presumption on previous drilling, which was all reverse circulation, was that was the beginning of the mineralization. But subsequent to that, we did core drilling in November, came back out and realized that there was possibly mineralization above the hanging wall. And that's where it's gotten interesting. And if you wind back to the press releases we've been putting out since the middle of January, you'll notice that we're hitting intercepts at the longest one now is almost 90 meters. And it's much closer to surface where the mineralization starts, which potentially would have dramatic impact on presumable economics and whatnot as you're getting closer to surface. So you're seeing much more broader intercepts. We're seeing mineralization above the hanging wall closer to surface, so that instead of 30 to 50 meters, we've now gotten the last 2 holes we put out last week, 38 and 39, we're looking at over 70 meters. And the hole before that, we were looking at almost 89 meters of mineralization. So essentially what we're not only far exceeding, we're actually looking at a model that's actually exceptionally better than what we were even thinking it was with the drill program that's underway right now.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. So let's go with the hanging wall contact concept and the fact that you're finding gold in drilling near the hanging wall contact, or actually past the hanging wall contact, and that would be slide 7, and the West Point Gold corporate presentation shows that very well. So it could be a lot bigger than you originally thought. But then I heard you advancing to a resource estimate and talking about 1 million ounces. So if you keep finding more gold and the gold zone is expanding, do you still do a resource on this, or do you just keep drilling?
Where we stand right now is on the conservative side, in the sense that what we're seeing is we're proving the model with the drilling that's happening right now. But this is open at depth, this is open at north, and this is open to the south. So yeah, and to keep in mind, the operative word there is it's a maiden resource. So this is just the first pass, and remembering that this is 3,000 meters, that's allowing us to do that with not more than 3,000 pre-rigs. So there's not a lot of early stage companies that can actually come out with a maiden resource with around 6,000 meters of drilling. It's got to show you this thing is near surface right there. It's very cost effective drilling. And as you've noticing, we've been hitting pretty decent mineralization on every hole. And as I mentioned to you at the start of the call, the obvious targets are being drilled now to give us that maiden resource and really drive the value of the story, so that the investors can say, okay, we've got this one in the hand, the Tyro vein. It may be bigger, it's likely bigger, but we want to go out there and test some of those other targets to the north and to the south as well. So giving that as a foundation for evaluation or growth in the story with respect to the shareholders, but say that there's a lot more to the story as we dig in with more work and more drilling.
Okay, so the goal seems to be 1 million ounces in resource, somewhere around 1.5 to 2 grams per ton average grade. You're drilling now. You've been drilling. Company's been pretty aggressive. When this phase of drilling is done, will you have enough to have that 1 million ounces, or do you think you'll have enough, or do you have to drill more?
The goal is to be close to that, if not there, in this first 3,000 ounces. And
3,000 meters, right?
3,000, yeah.
3,000 meters. Very key distinction there.
Yeah, no, that was a slight slip, but yeah, no, correct. So that would be, as mentioned, just a first pass at it. So we'll expect, we hope, or at least presuming, at least right now, as far as we are concerned, it's definitely open at depth and to the north, and we haven't even tested the south yet.
Okay. And I mean, 1 million ounces at surface in Arizona at 1.5 or 2 grams is a pretty good starting point. What do you need to see to possibly expand that and say, maybe we have 2 million ounces here at the Tyro Main Zone, or on the gold chain property in total?
Well, what we need to do is continue drilling, and that's what we're intending to do. So, as you know, we've actually had very successful drilling in the sense that we've been hitting on most of our drill holes as I mentioned to you and reiterated this, the obvious targets are hitting where we're expecting them to hit. And this program, we expect to continue to do that. It's actually subsequent programs where we're going to start to say, how much more can this be, 2 million ounces or more? But we certainly are, we want to be in a position to be able to answer those questions with the terminus of this program, which is still another 4 to 6 weeks away.
Okay, let's go back in time a little bit, because this was a mining operation at some point in time, a long time ago. And you can see in some of the pictures from the Tyro pit, and also some of the graphics in the presentation, you can see this weird shaped pit, very small pit that the old timers dug. Well, what can you tell us about when this was mined and sort of when the project went dormant?
Well, the lion's share of the mining and what really took the grade, meaning half an ounce or 15 grams, was back in 1905 to 1920, back in the old gold rush days. So that's really what put this area on the map as perspective. And again, if you look at our project claim map, which I think is slide 3 of the deck, 4, I should say, you can look at where all the historic mining was, and remembering that if it was 100 years ago, these guys were not mining anything less than probably half an ounce. And as you know, it's superficial, it's oxide, and this is back in the days you could just pound the rock and get the gold out, basically, because it's microscopic, but it's at least obviously heavier than the rockets around. So there's nothing really complex happening when you're dealing with that kind of grade. Now, the second passage of mining actually happened in the 80s, early 80s. There was a heap leach operation where they essentially, right where the vein was, they went right down along the footwall and between the hanging wall, and just threw rock on a nearby heap leach pad. And in the 80s, and were able, I think they mined something like 20 or 30,000 ounces. It wasn't a huge amount, and you can't even see the heap leach pad now; it's grown over. And that was the last time it was mined. And what's interesting also about this company and the opportunity is that this land package has never been put together under one umbrella. It's been disparate, and so there's never really been like kind of a structural perspective of the Tyro mine. And those of you that know the story also will understand the Frisco Graben to the north of us, of the Tyro. It's adjacent, but to the north of the Tyro structure on the north east. That's a blind target. But there's no historical mining there, but that's the presumption of where we believe might be the source of the gold. And to compare it to those of you that know my background with Corvus Gold, on that project, we had just under 2 million ounces at our mother lode. And to the north of that, Anglo Gold had the ground Merlin and Silicon, and they made a 10 million ounce discovery there on the area that would be presumed the source, or the Graben. And so we've got a Graben under our umbrella here with West Point Gold ourselves, and we're like chomping at the bit to drill that as soon as we possibly can. And this is the area where, as mentioned, it's a very obvious target, but it's certainly not going to be a target that we're going to be hitting with the kind of rate we're hitting at Tyro, because we're going to need to figure it out.
Okay, so you have a potential big upside target there that you're going to leave for a later date. That's to the north of Tyro, but Tyro is the focus now. So you announced the assays for 2 holes. I think this drill program started in February, if I recall. So that means the turnaround is pretty fast. I mean, you guys are getting these assays out pretty fast. The news release says 11 completed holes are still pending, and the drill program is still ongoing. So when should we get more of these good assays?
Well, the plan right now is the first 5 holes were done on the first shift, and we sent those to the lab a month ago. And we rushed 2 of them, which were the ones released, purely and simply just to get some news out into the market to let everyone know how we're seeing, at least visually seeing, the program. And as you know, getting an idea of those results is also helping us figure out the drill program and the targets as we go. So it's helpful to us, but it's also helpful to the market, because it's, as you know, you want to have as much information as you possibly can while you're actually doing a drilling to make it as effective and useful as possible. So that's kind of all that's going on right there. So we actually rushed the first 2 holes. And so the rest of the holes will be coming out on schedule, which would be approximately every 2 weeks.
Okay. And the drill is still turning.
The drill is still turning, yes.
And so you said 3,000 to 4,000 meters. So that means that there's still probably another 4 weeks, left in this drill program.
Yeah, there's another shift, exactly, which is about 2 weeks. And then, as mentioned, we've done 2 of the 3 shifts in this program. It's about 1,000 meters per shift.
I see. Okay. If anybody has a question for West Point Gold, go ahead and ask to speak, and I'll call on you. So, if you talked about the target to the north, which seems like a pretty large target area. But if we just stick to Tyro, where do you see the room to expand at Tyro? Is there more, strike extent to test to the south? And how deep can you go, I guess?
Well, those are the questions we need to answer with drilling, both of those. So the answer is that it's open to the south, it's open at depth, and as we've been talking about, to the north of Frisco Graben, it's open there too. So we're discussing internally yesterday that drilling at depth is pretty low risk based on the drilling we've seen to 150 meters. So yeah, I mean, there's still lots of dimensions to this that still need to be understood. And as mentioned, we're trying right now with the focus with the current drill program is just get this maiden resource out, have that drive value for the shareholders in the market, and then we can start to figure out the other aspects / extensions of the deposit, so to speak.
Okay. And then just to put a bow tie on that, so once the drilling is done in this phase of drilling, and you put out all the assays from the drilling, what will be next for the company at Gold Chain?
Well, that's the runway we're trying to figure out on this program. So, as mentioned to you, we're dealing with a district with a lot of historical mining, a lot of targets that we need to figure out, and those will get figured out when we have time and money to do so in the treasury. So, with that being said, the current focus right now with the company is to get the foundation of the story around that maiden resource of Tyro, do some early stage first pass drilling at both the Frisco Graben and to the southern extension, potentially at depth too. These are all things that the current program are I guess for lack of an expression, prioritizing for us because there is so much that we need to do and working within that. So you'll see continued information and drill results coming out of Tyro. And as mentioned, what we want to do is start to figure out what are the higher priority targets, and I can tell you the top three of them right now are extending north to Frisco, depth below Tyro, and to the south, the Sunset Sheep Trail. And those of you that are looking on deck slide 5, you can see those all clearly marked.
All right, that makes sense. So let's talk about the share structure, company cash. How much cash does the company have currently? And also, I noticed slide 15 in the presentation, there's some warrants. Are any of those warrants coming in?
Yeah, the warrants actually have started to come in, which is great. The liquidity has done its job on that. And that's what essentially is giving us more flexibility to look at things like expanding the drill program and testing some of the other sites. So that's actually been quite successful for us. So that's impacting the treasury. We've got where we're at right now with the treasury is the programs that we've got are funded. And essentially what we're doing right now is a lot of the programs and the drilling is going to be really contingent on the warrant money coming in, but it has been coming in. And so, and that's really going to be a bit of a fluid number for us. So I basically, I think the best thing to say is stay tuned on that with respect to both the treasury and the drill program.
Okay. So the 50-cent warrants are obviously an important potential source of funding, and they've started to come in. All right, so let's tell us what you would like about the other projects of the company. I mean, obviously Gold Chain is the focus, it's the main event right now, but I know the company has several projects.
Well, I think the one that you're most likely to see news on is Jefferson Canyon, which is 7 kilometers due east of Round Mountain in Nevada. We have a joint venture with Kinross on that. They need to spend the next $600,000 at that. And those of you that follow Round Mountain know it's a 20 million ounce deposit that's nearly mined out. The grade going through it is quite low, and they need nearby satellite mines to offset that grade and make the economics more robust. So that's why they've got this joint venture. The next step on that is getting the permit to drill. Kinross is very keen to get that drill program going. There's some phenomenal historical drilling done on that project. I think those of you that have looked at the deck so far, that far east hole GG81 with 167 meters of 1.9 grams gold and 145 silver grams. That's a pretty robust hole, and that's, Kinross is salivating over getting this going. And again, it's just a function of getting the permit sorted out. We're at the 5-yard line to get that permit, and Kinross has agreed to allow us to put out news every month with their approval based on the work they're doing. So I would suspect you're going to see news from that when that permit comes in to do that. And that's something, as I mentioned to you, the lion's share of our news will be out of Gold Chain, but you should be seeing news of the work Kinross is doing periodically, probably latter part of the year as well, based on their ability to get drills on that site when the permits come in.
Okay, that makes sense, and that would be nice to see news from Kinross at Jefferson Canyon. That would add another big aspect to the West Point Gold story. So, a final question, Quentin, and maybe a big picture one. I'm not sure that really anything has happened in the last few days, but there was an executive order from the Trump administration last week about metals and mining and mobilizing this key industry in the U.S. And just, your thoughts when you read that and what it could mean in the future. I understand that things don't move that fast in government, but what could it mean for mining in the U.S.?
Well, it's nice to see him include gold in the critical metals. But I got to tell you, I mean, the best part about it is creating a dialogue about something that needs to happen in the U.S. because the federal lands in the U.S. are incredibly rich with minerals that just not been able to touch. I mean, I spent a lot of my life, professional life, with a project in Alaska, and you've got some very robust ground in Alaska with federal ground that you couldn't even try to get a permit on before this administration came in. And I think the U.S. actually making a concerted effort to get that kind of development going and not relying on other countries to import that is significant. I think to be more closed or specific or targeted on West Point, those of you that know the district there of that northwestern part of Arizona, as soon as Trump got elected, and one of the first things he said was "drill, baby, drill." That company Mako said they've put 20,000 ounces of production together in Nicaragua, which they're expanding. They've got a project into Guyana, and they said we need to be in the U.S. And they went and bought a distressed asset, the Moss Mine, out of receivership before the year end, specifically to get on top of that. So the point being is I suspect there's going to be a lot more focus, interest, and let's hope investment in the sector as a result of that, which is what Trump wants. So we're applauding it and certainly looking to see that come back and help and impact all our share prices of our investments here.
Very good. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Looks like we have no questions from the audience at this time, but I think that's a good take. And it is interesting that Makeup came in and acquired that Moss Mine, which is not too far from Gold Chain, quite frankly. That asset has always been a little challenging, but good company, good operators who have proven that they can build mines and turn things around. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at Moss. It could be good for Arizona. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. This recording will be up on my YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.